Hi, I'm Tracy Goldner. I recently wrote a story for Northwest Regional Education Service District about a sweeping infrastructure project that's quietly transforming internet access in schools across our region. In a moment, you'll hear the story read by Aaron Sackett, our Director of Technology, who walked me through the blinking servers and bundled cables that make up the digital spine of our schools. But before he metaphorically unspools the miles of fiber and years of planning that went into this project, I want to reflect on how we told this story and how, given the chance, we might tell it differently. Because here's the thing, when the internet is working, we don't think about it. I wish I'd started this story somewhere more human, maybe with a student who'd lost steam on a project when their school went dark after an outage, or an attendance secretary suddenly unable to confirm which students are in the building. These are the ripple effects we often miss, and the people most affected by the very systems we're upgrading. I did eventually speak with students and teachers who rely deeply on the internet for coursework and career training, but it was toward the end of my reporting, and they didn't seem to grasp how significant this project is for their day-to-day lives because they hadn't yet experienced an outage. Some of our more rural districts said they were accustomed to outages, so disruptions were more normalized. But I don't think that will always be the case. And there are plenty of examples of suburban and urban districts that grind to a halt when the internet conks out. Next time, I'll start with these stories. And only then, I'll talk to the project leads, the ones making it all work behind the scenes. For now, there's a lot of story to share, and I'm honored to hand the mic to Aaron Sackett, who will read Why Your Kid's School Just Got a Game-Changing Internet Upgrade.
These days, the internet is as vital for students as books and pencils. When the internet goes out, our work comes to a halt, says John Wurst, a mechatronics teacher at Forest Grove High School. Mechatronics classes draw students interested in robotics, various forms of engineering, semiconductors, and other careers in advanced manufacturing. Students rely on software programs to write code to feed their 3D printers so they can print tiny replicas of tugboats, puzzles, pyramids, mailboxes, and of course, because it's high school, toilets. They learn about 3D modeling and practice coding. There's no way to do this work without the internet, says John, who built the program at Forest Grove in partnership with Portland Community College. There is such a demand in this region of the country, dubbed the Silicon Forest, that students regularly get job offers before they're even finished with their associate's degrees. Undergirding all of this training and skill building is the internet, or what Stuart Long likes to call educational plumbing. Unless it's broken, you really don't think about it, says Stuart, who leads the Cascade Technology Alliance, a consortium that coordinates information technology services such as cybersecurity, student databases, and network services for 28 school districts with nearly 500 schools in Clatsop, Columbia, Multnomah, Tillamook, and Washington counties. For the past decade, Stuart and colleague Eric Harrison have been leading an effort to revolutionize the way schools are connected to the internet. Eric says it all started with a few changes to the federal level and his own questioning of the status quo. Since the 1990s, the federal government has helped schools and libraries gain affordable internet access. This program is known as E-rate and reimburses schools for between 20 to 90% of their costs, depending on various factors. But in 2016, the program decided to start reimbursing for dark fiber rather than previous iterations of the internet, including modem or cable broadband internet. In this context, the term dark fiber, which refers to the unused or unlit part of the cable, means that schools provide their own optics and can increase network speeds at any time for a small fraction of the cost of a traditional lit fiber service. The change meant that there was now money on the table to vastly improve internet speeds and reliability at schools around the country. Eric approached a few of the larger school districts in Washington County to ask whether they'd be willing to provide some seed money so he and his team could look at how to capitalize on this change. Beaverton, Hillsborough, and Tigard-Tualatin kicked in a few $1,000s each, representing just a tiny fraction of a percentage of their yearly budgets to support his endeavor. A few months and dozens of hours of research later, Eric had a concept for the project. The premise was this: what if instead of connecting schools through a hub and spoke concept at the district level, The schools were connected to each other in a ring with the ability to flow service one way or the other. The hub and spoke was how it had always been done, but the clear downside is that there isn't any backup. A car driving into the wrong power pole or a backhoe digging on the wrong spot can take a school out or even an entire district offline for hours. There were a lot of naysayers for this concept. The designs we put in place historically, everyone was afraid of doing, he said. After all, it can be quite scary making fundamental changes to critical infrastructure. Plus, people also told him the rules wouldn't allow it, but he was convinced they would. He wrote detailed plans with various scenarios and explained how the concept would actually bring better service for a lower cost. The gamble paid off. It started as a pilot project interconnecting Beaverton, Hillsborough, Portland Public, and Tigard-Tualatin school districts and the regional offices of Multnomah and Northwest Regional Education Service Districts. The following year, the team expanded out to 100 sites in key locations, such as high schools with interconnections to Centennial, David Douglas, Gresham Barlow, Park Rose, Reynolds, and Riverdale school districts, and Clackamas Education Service District. In March of 2020, as COVID-19 was barreling toward the United States, the team was in the process of connecting over 300 sites, including every school in Beaverton, Hillsborough, Multnomah County, St. Helens, and Tigard-Tualatin. 2.5 years later, the project was complete. If a car hits the pole with an internet cable that serves a community school and takes out that connection, the internet would instead draw from a different direction. Since that time, Eric has set sights on smaller cities and towns farther west all the way to the Oregon coast. There are nearly 250 schools that could potentially be connected this way. The project is optional, but the more districts that opt in, the more resilient the system will be. We're not forcing anybody, Stewart says, but the business case is clear. Participating districts are getting faster internet, a more resilient system, and ownership of their network, all for the same price or slightly less than what they were paying third-party vendors now. The next round of schools to sign included Astoria, Forest Grove, Gaston, Neocani, and Yamhill Carlton. Enrique Piñon, the technology director of Forest Grove, says he's been pleased with the progress so far. Internet speeds in the district will increase tenfold at all 15 Forest Grove schools and sites starting this summer. Smaller programs that have been operating on a fraction of that will see their internet speed grow significantly. Whether it's in the classroom or the business office, he anticipates that everyone will be able to operate faster online. And the changes will also help the district navigate growing demand in the next decade and beyond. Long term, this is going to be good for the district, he says. Right now, whenever they need to upgrade a school or facility, the process is cumbersome and requires a new contract with a third-party vendor and at least $5,000 to $10,000 investment. But after July 1st, Forest Grove and Northwest Regional ESD will own the network, the switches, and the cables. Whenever they need more bandwidth, the upgrade will be as easy as flipping a switch. We are future-proofing the district, he says. For districts still mulling over the options, Enrique says he relies on Eric and his team for the heavier lifting, but he advises districts to make sure everyone involved is on the same page. After about a year of planning, which entails identifying vendors who can upgrade switches and lay fiber optic cables, determining where to lay cables, and getting approval from all the appropriate parties, the project has now begun in earnest with a go-live date of July 1st. In terms of cost, Enrique says the district is recouping 100%. The federal E-rate program is reimbursing 80%, and a state matching grant is covering the rest. In the neighboring Gaston School District, about 14 miles southwest of Forest Grove, where there are about 480 elementary, middle, and high school students compared to Forest Grove's 6,100, the project has been similar but simpler. With just one campus for all students and staff, there are fewer logistics to handle, but the concept remains the same. The district now has new circuits, and along with NWSD, owns the lines. Internet will flow to Yamhill Carlton to the southwest and Forest Grove to the east. Dave Heineck is the new technology director in Gaston and says he's been impressed so far. It's a really clever project between Cascade Technology Alliance and the school districts to keep the costs even while adding this resilient functionality, he says. The project is now complete in Gaston and will go live any day now. Dave says it's hard to estimate the cost of a school losing internet access these days. Of course, teachers are expected to have a plan B, and students can always switch over to paper and pencil, but it might not always match up with what the computer can do. If there is a power outage or some other outage at the same time, the district would have a hard time communicating with families. He said they'd have to rely on cell phones to make calls or distribute closure notices. So having that built-in backup brings peace of mind. It took a lot of foresight to be able to come up with this idea, he says, and conviction to follow through on it as well. Levi Nugent, who has overseen technology for the Neocani School District for the past 16 years, agrees that the actual physical changes taking place in his district this year are not that noticeable, even though the work that is happening is bringing about some big changes in terms of speeds, ownership, and resilience. He echoed Stewart's sentiments about how this type of work tends to cause people's eyes to glaze over. It is not so sexy when you're replacing infrastructure, he says. It's locked in a cabinet. But it's a big deal when it doesn't work. That's when people notice. Other benefits of being connected to Seaside to the north and Tillamook to the south are that they'll have more ownership of the equipment and will be able to upgrade more seamlessly during the next decade. The next round closes at the end of March and is expected to add resilient connections to Clatskanie, Napa, Rainier, Seaside, Tillamook, and Vernonia school districts. For districts across the region, state, and nation, the E-rate subsidy is critical. During 2024, schools requested $3.2 billion in reimbursements, according to K-12 Dive. But there could be a change afoot. Last July, the Fifth Circuit Court ruled the funding mechanism for E-rate is unconstitutional. The case was appealed and will be heard by the U.S. Supreme Court this spring, with a final ruling expected in the summer. Stewart said the rulings so far indicate that the program is at risk, but not catastrophically at risk. We're very much paying attention, he says, but the program is safe for now, and schools should continue to request reimbursements until they hear otherwise.